I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. I'd like to take just a minute and read a couple of verses of Scripture, if I could. The Bible says, "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Grieve not the Holy Spirit of God, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you." And in Philippians chapter 2 it says, "Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others." I hope that that's what we can do this morning. I just wanted to clarify the, number one, the purpose of the meeting, and number two, why I feel that it's not a public meeting that requires public notice and then the attendance of the press or the public. Some of you may know about an exchange of emails that took place. First, Mr. Miller sent an email to myself and to Gary Page, and he requested that he be allowed to be on the January 7th meeting agenda. That request was received after our deadline for being placed on the agenda, and in that case would have required a vote of 3 commissioners. I expressed that to Mr. Miller. And in that same email, he requested several items of information from the county. What disturbed me in the request was there was a statement, "It's my understanding that this information has been requested during the past year with no response from your office." That disturbed me a little bit. I don't know who made the request. I don't remember ever having seen it. And it is our policy to reply to all information requests on a timely matter. So at that point, Gary Page and I had a discussion, and I requested that he gather all the information that was requested and be prepared to present that information. Sometimes you gather information, you put it on a piece of paper, and it can be a stack this high, and when people get it, it's hard to understand. I wanted to make sure that every question that was answered or asked was answered, and that proper detail was given to those questions. The second part of the email stated, "I look forward to your response and the development of an effective relationship between our two boards. I would be happy to have a personal audience with either or both of you to discuss these issues." And that's what prompted my email response to Mr. Miller, where I stated quite clearly that the January 7th agenda had already been set, that I had no problem with him contacting 3 commissioners and getting their approval to add it as a special agenda item. And then I indicated that I and Vice Chairman Craig Pierce would be glad to schedule a time to meet to discuss the development of the relationship of our 2 governmental boards. Now, there's nothing, I want to make it very clear, there's nothing in this meeting about a discussion regarding the central office. That is not the content or the intent of this meeting. It's twofold: to discuss the relationship of our 2 boards, how that we'll proceed in the future, and secondly, to provide the information that had been requested and make sure that all those questions are answered. And then in a third email, Mr. Miller sent to me, said, "Chairman Sides, thank you for your response to my request from yesterday. As a result of our conversation today, we have agreed to meet on December the 10th at 10 a.m. in one of the conference rooms at your office. Gene Miller, Tara Trexler will be present initially, as you have Ms. Hydrick and Ms. Jolly present to address my questions from yesterday. At the end of this discussion, you, Mr. Pierce, Mr. Page, Dr. Grissom, Ms. Norman, and myself will engage in a discussion about the development of a relationship between our 2 boards. Thank you in advance for your willingness to participate in open and frank discussions about relational issues of mutual concern to both boards." So this meeting is not about the central office. It's not my intent to bring that subject up. That subject will be addressed at a later date in an open forum, certainly in a very public meeting, and everybody who's involved would have an opportunity to speak. That's my opening statement for the meeting. I will allow Dr. Miller to make an opening statement, and at that point in time, I will request that the press leave the room, and we will conduct our meeting as originally planned. Thank you.
I think it's important to note that there is no disagreement with your review of last week's emails, but the genesis of this meeting started on December 18th, the immediate day after I was elected chairperson of the Board of Education. The Board of Education, which I believe our minutes will reflect, on a request by board member Josh Wagner, asked that the chair proceed with discussions to develop a relationship with the county commission. And the minutes will reflect that the chair agreed that I would proceed with that as the consensus of the board. Correct, Ms. Norman? So that the first call, I went home that night. I did not make a call that Monday night. It was late. The first call I made on Tuesday morning was to Chairman Sides' office to make two requests. One was to invite him to the January 3rd meeting that we had set on that to discuss the school board's project, of which the county commission is a participant, on January 3rd. The second request in that was, at the direction of the Board of Education, I'd like to schedule a time and meeting for that. We had several responses back and forth in that email train relative to the January 3rd meeting, but it was not until I asked to be on the 7th agenda that I got a response to my request for the relational meeting, because at each time it was important to us that we need to have some kind of understanding of our relationship before we can ever effectively do business together. That's where it's got to be. So that the request for the relational meeting was not just last week. It happened the first day I was officially chairperson of the board and had the authority to make any request as the chairperson. We did have a conversation, I believe, Mr. Chairman, it was Thursday of last week. We did talk on the phone.
I believe so.
And we agreed what this meeting would look like, because this is not either the school board, even though the school board has the request, and therefore I believe we get to have say in how the meeting operates. I felt he and I mutually agreed on how this meeting would proceed, who would be here, and he referenced that. I was, Chairman, taken quite aback on Monday when there was, in my opinion, a unilateral announcement that the press will not be there and we'll not talk about this and we'll not talk about that, because if it were your meeting and you had invited us, I would wholeheartedly agree you could make those unilateral decisions. But I do believe under statute that we are boards of equal stature. You have a function of funding, we have a function of directing the school system and doing the best interest of the kids as that serves Rowan County. So that while we have different functions, we are boards of equal stature and equal authority within our realm. So that coming to the table, we have to come as equals. And I thought, actually, last Thursday in our conversation, we did that. So that on Monday, for me to hear in your meeting that you had decided there wouldn't be press and you had decided decisions were better behind closed doors, that's really takes away from what I thought we'd started on Thursday as far as a joint recognition of the authority of each board to function within our realms of jurisdiction. So that is why when I was asked about the press's presence, I made it very clear that the school board has no intention of violating the public trust relative to the open meetings law. Your action caused us to seek a legal opinion from our attorneys, which have said to us that there is some gray area relative to, is this a committee or not a committee? However, with it being a directive of the board and not just a decision I made, but I was directed by the board to ask for this relational meeting, that makes him lean more to that this meeting is a committee meeting and therefore has to be open to the public. So the board is still not in agreement to the press being excluded from this meeting. I will be happy to offer for you and I to meet one-on-one to discuss things, because that clearly, and I think the press would agree with us, does not constitute an open meeting requirement, and I'll be happy to do that, but to continue today until we get a clear ruling from our attorneys that we can share with you, that we do not want to violate the public trust by having an inappropriate meeting of which we may be considered a committee. So I ask you to, if you're willing, you and I to meet one-on-one.
If you do not intend to meet, short of the press being public, then I'll request that staff return to their jobs. We'll provide you the written material that has been requested. If you have any questions related to that material, you can contact the county manager. He'd be glad to answer any questions. And we'll conclude this meeting at this point.
Okay. Again, I believe I have as much authority to say we're either concluding or not concluding.
Well, you can stay as long as you want.
No,
Really.
I need your presence, because if I have to sit here and listen to you, which I have done respectfully, then I expect the same respect from you to me as an equal chair.
You're not required to sit here and listen to me.
I understand that. It's called a public courtesy of one elected official to another.
If you would like to set up a meeting with me, I'll be glad to talk to you individually at any
Okay.
time you so desire. But
Okay,
if you're not
but-
willing to conduct this meeting today without the press, then our meeting is over.
Okay, and my final word on that is all I'm trying to get in here,
Right.
and want you to hear, so it's not misquoted or given to you from someone else, is that I'm requesting we adjourn this meeting until we can agree on the appropriate process totally. Okay?
Well, it's not an adjournment, it's cancellation. Meeting's
Well,
canceled. Thank you.
from your point of view, we have a difference of opinion there, so we have to mutually agree, because it's our meeting, it's not your meeting or
We
my
don't have to
meeting.
mutually agree.
Staff
You
will
return.
you
to
are
their
exactly correct.
work, And the meeting's canceled. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for coming, we appreciate it. Thank you for the information. If I have any questions, I'll call you, okay? Okay.